So let's start with the first step, transcription. Transcription means copying in the same language. We will now focus on the first step, transcription, which means to copy in the same language. You now know that cells use DNA to make RNA, and these molecules are considered in the same language because their structures are quite similar in many ways, as this chart shows. And at the bottom of this chart, we can see how similar the nitrogenous bases are therein. Inside DNA and inside RNA, you can find G for guanine, you can find A for adenine, and you can find C for cytosine. The final letters are different, T for thymine inside DNA, and U for uracil inside RNA. But T and U aren't actually that different from each other if you look at their molecular structure. For example, you can see carbons with the same number of bonds in the exact same spaces all over these molecules, nitrogen's in the same spot as well. The only thing that's really different is this small cluster of atoms that's off to the side. So even though thymine and uracil do have different names, for the most part, they are pretty similar. Which just adds to the point. DNA and RNA are in the same basic language, so to change from one to the other is to transcribe, not to translate. DNA and RNA are also very similar in the sugars they contain in their backbones. For example, in DNA, you have this molecule right here, deoxyribose sugar, and in RNA, you have ribose sugar. These molecules are almost entirely identical except for the small cluster of atoms that's over here to the side. You can see that right here in deoxyribose sugar there is an oxygen missing, and that's where the molecule gets its name, deoxyribose, meaning missing an oxygen, whereas ribose sugar has that oxygen. But still, this is just one atom of difference we're talking about. These molecules are still, for the most part, identical. But in the upcoming diagrams, a surefire way to tell the difference between DNA and RNA is to look at how many strands make it up. DNA always comes in this double-stranded structure. That's where it gets its name, double helix, whereas RNA always comes in a single long strand right here. So that's something to keep an eye out for if you're ever wondering if you're looking at a DNA molecule or an RNA molecule. DNA, double-stranded, RNA, single-stranded. When transcription takes place, you can see this difference between the DNA and the RNA. For example, the DNA is over here. Here it is in its double-stranded structure. You can see it, double helix. And then coming out from this structure, you have this one long single-stranded nucleic acid. That's ribonucleic acid, or RNA. Now this diagram is a picture of transcription happening, of the message that's inside the DNA being copied and put into an RNA molecule. And you can see that being done by this large enzyme right here. This enzyme is named very appropriately. It's called RNA polymerase because the A's tells us that it's an enzyme, and what does this enzyme make? It makes RNA polymers, that is those long RNA chains like the one you see right here. This enzyme, by the way, is that scribe making copies of the DNA, those RNA molecules, never forget. And what did the scribe do with those RNA molecules? He tossed them out the windows of his castle. Now the windows of the castle in this case, well here's the castle, it's the actual nucleus that's going around like this, and the windows are these little suckers right here. Those are nuclear pores. Holes in the nuclear envelope that allow the RNA molecules to go out where they will be read. The thing that always impresses me about all this is that scientists never see a pretty cartoon like this when they look inside a cell. Instead, they see something that looks like this. And they look at this picture, and using their vast techniques and years of studying, they're able to look at this and say, alright, this long strand right here is the DNA, this little lump right here must be the RNA polymerase, and sometimes you can see trailing out from the top of it is an mRNA molecule. Very, very difficult to see, so thank you scientists and people who made our textbooks for making clearer cartoons that are easier to understand than this picture through a microscope.